The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
Fuel prices hit a record high in Georgia. Price for regular type gasoline totals to GAL 3.71, around 3.77, while premium type gasoline cost exceeds GAL 3.85 and super GAL 3.99. The price increase is totally due to the price growth on the global market. The Minister of Education and Science of Georgia, Mikhail Chkhankeli, hosted an Israeli delegation led by Nissim Ben-Shitrit, the former Director General of the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Ran Gidur, the Israeli ambassador to Georgia. Details of ensuring mobility transfers of Israeli students from Ukrainian to Georgian higher education institutions were discussed at the meeting. Railway administrations and logistics companies held a working meeting in Tashkent, which was attended by Kaka Gudiashvili, Director of Freight Transportation of Georgian Railways. The meeting was focused on the current challenges and future prospects of the corridor connecting from China to Turkey and Europe through Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan and Georgia. At the meetings, the foreign counterparts discussed the responsibilities of the parties, the terms of shipment and the tariff conditions for the smooth operation of the container shipping. Emirati Agro Zone, a state-owned LLC with the main aim and goal to create a greenhouse cluster development in Emirati region, is going to buy consulting services worth GAL 3.5 million. The company submitted a relevant application to the State Procurement Agency. According to the tender, the consulting company must prepare a greenhouse cluster development project. USAID Deputy Administrator Isobel Coleman and TBC Bank Chief Executive Officer Vakhtang Butskrigidze affirmed their joint commitment to strengthen Georgia's economic diversification and resilience at a ceremony marking a new memorandum of understanding. Under the MOU, USAID will partner with TBC Bank to expand access to finance and business support services for inclusive economic growth, promote women's economic empowerment and develop the skills businesses need to grow. This is the Checkpoint. I'm Elena Gwanjilashvili and we are ready to start. The depreciation of the national currency had a negative effect on the state debt of Georgia. According to statistics published by the Ministry of Finance, as of February 28, Georgia's public external debt was USD 8.12 billion, or it's GAL 25.63 billion. Compared to January, state debt increased by USD 26 million, while the growth made up GAL 908 million in the national currency, almost 1 billion GAL. This increase was due to the depreciation of the GAL exchange rate. If 1 USD was worth GAL 3.05 on January 30, the exchange rate was GAL 3.15 on February 28th. In the last few weeks, the lari has depreciated against the dollar, leading to an increase in government debt. Georgia owns the largest debt of the World Bank, which ranks on the first place. The country took the debt for the development of a number of major infrastructure projects. In second place is the Asian Development Bank, which also finances major infrastructure projects, and Georgia owes a debt of USD 1.86 billion. As for bilateral loans, France, AFD, is in first place among the countries to which Georgia owes a debt of USD 691 million. Whose debt does Georgia own? Here are the exact statistics brought to you by BMG and the checkpoints. World Bank, IDA and IBRD USD 2.03 billion. Asian Development Bank ADB USD 1.86 billion. European Investment Bank EIB USD 806 million. France AFD USD 691 million. Germany KfW USD 670 million. Eurobond of the government of Georgia USD 500 million. Debt of the National Bank to the International Monetary Fund IMF USD 466 million. European Bank for Reconstruction and Development EBRD USD 229 million. Government debt to the International Monetary Fund IMF USD 205 million. Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, USD 194 million. Japan, USD 186 million. European Union, EU, USD 149 million. International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, USD 37 million. Russian, USD 25 million. Austria, USD 16 million. America, USD 13 million. Kuwait, USD 11 million. Turkey, USD 7 million. Council of Europe Development Bank, CEB, USD 5 million. Kazakhstan, USD 4 million. Azerbaijan, USD 4 million. Armenia, USD 3 million. Iran, USD 3 million. Scandinavian Environmental Finance Corporation, NEFCO, USD 2 million. China, USD 0.5 million. Well, Forbes in Georgia doesn't owe anyone anything, and as the pandemic showed, it is well hedged against all the challenges, no matter whether easy to see through or not. Here's Forbes English, brought to you by Forbes Georgia, during the dredging effects of the pandemic and the devastating Russian war in Ukraine. So proud to be part of this survivor team as its executive editor.
The time has come when projections are so time-sensitive that it is hard to catch lasting trends. The reason for this is an unimaginable reality that all of us must face due to a fully fledged war in the 21st century, which should have been the century of diplomacy rather than armed conflict. But Putin and his Russia has made it clear that imperialism has neither a sense of humanity nor respect for the other's liberty. Read Elena Evangelishvili's opinion, Georgia in Putin's war on Ukraine. Our cover story is about digital acceleration partner. We have Vago Tunava, CEO and founder of Swift Digital, who talks about his main source of pride of being able to develop the knowledge economy in Georgia, create a talent pool for the future and export its services to the developed world. So Forbes Georgia's English edition also covers.
What impact will the Russia-Ukraine war have on the Georgian economy? Besonam Chavadze analyzes the current unprecedented situation. Following the various impacts of the Russia-Ukraine war, the turnover of container shipments in the Black Sea region increased by 3% in 2021, which can or could be considered as a sign of the revival of the pandemic-hit economy. Read Irakli Danelia's professional thoughts on the Black Sea container shipment market. We have Roman Gotziridze's op-ed about the lights and shadows of cryptocurrency in Georgia. And also, Industry Builder is the fairy tale story of Tegeta Holding and its founder, Temur Kokhodze, who now values his business at over 1 billion lari and is also the owner of the Sayurme Resort. In September 2022, the University of Georgia, together with the Future Laboratory and US Berkeley, will launch a master's course in entrepreneurship and innovation. It will be run by Gok Atopuria and Irakli Kashibadze. This is Forbes Georgia English edition, so for more insights into the business and economy world, follow us on Forbes Georgia social media channels.
Gambling sector is definitely something to keep an eye on when thinking on the Forbes scale. Gsisa Cable's this interview focuses on regulations that have been introduced to Georgia not long ago, and then many anticipated it would decrease the appeal of the business environment for the FDI in the gambling sector. What does the large player have to say about the current business environment? Mark Pace kept his promise and word visiting Forbes Georgia office a few days ago after arrival to Tbilisi.
So happy that we are following our last interview, but still it was hard COVID times, hard COVID period.
It was.
We promised to each other that we will definitely meet in Georgia and in Forbes Georgia office.
There you go, and we're here.
Yeah, and great to host you here.
Thank you very much. And first and foremost, I'd like to say I'm sorry for bringing this cold weather with me from Chicago.
Well, it's March. March is always very specific in Georgia, as usually happens. But tell me, you're following all the activities due to the current status quo of the industry itself. While mentioning and discussing, after your permission, about what's going on generally worldwide in this regards, how do you evaluate the concrete situation and status quo happening within the industry right nowadays? We've touched this issue while it was in a process of, let me say so, implementation. I mean, Parliament and other governmental bodies were involved in this industry itself. Where do we stand now?
Well, you used the word implementation. We're still in the midst
in a process,
yeah, it's a process. And it will continue to be a process. But the good news is that the government here has, again, as I mentioned last time, really had the foresight to put in place a process that is looking to grow the industry appropriately, while at the same point in time putting in place, checks and balances to make sure that as the world has come to understand and accept that gambling does have some harmful side effects for a small minority of people, that those small minority of people are in fact protected. And those are some of the things that the government here has put in place. The good news is that the other things, like putting together a business environment that is really looking to draw companies from outside of Georgia, is in fact working, and it's happening.
You mean it's still working? You mean the FDI just within this industry, it's operative and attracting due to the current status. Am I right? Did I get you correctly?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, what we're seeing is that more and more companies are very interested in moving to Georgia. And doing things that are accretive to the Georgian economy without introducing any of the potentially, I'll call it harmful side effects. So let me explain what I mean by that.
Please.
One of the most fastest growing segments of the gambling industry is sports betting.
It is.
And the other piece is what we call live gaming.
And
live gaming is a very interesting thing. It's been around for quite a while, but it's becoming more and more popular. And what that is that you've got a studio, and very similar to this, but instead of having, two individuals having a conversation and a few cameras, you've got a number of table games, roulette, blackjack, baccarat, sigbo, whatever games. These games are being videotaped, and then that video feed is provided to players around the world, and they can bet on the activity being seen through this video feed. So the dealers, typically they're younger, attractive people, are sitting there, dealing the cards, and then this video feed is sent out, and it is manifested itself on the players' desktops or mobile phones or what have you, as different types of games with different bonuses, different progressives, different sort of interesting twists on what generally is a boring blackjack game. Those companies are coming to Georgia for two reasons. One, I think the tax incentives in Georgia are strong. The real estate as an advantage. The real estate is attractive and available, and there are a lot of people that have the skill set necessary to learn. Lots of attractive young people that are available. So
let's say stuff.
Yeah.
Which is also affordable.
Right. And here's the best part, though. So I mentioned how this is accretive to Georgia, but doesn't have any of the potential harmful elements. The reason that is because now they're buying real estate or renting real estate in Georgia. They're hiring people in Georgia. They are spending money in terms of food and all of the other things they need to set up a studio, furniture, you name it, technology.
That's an FDI, actually.
Exactly. They're hiring and they're bringing in technologists from outside and from inside of Georgia. So they're teaching Georgians how to use this technology and how to improve it. And then on top of that, this video feed isn't being made available to Georgian citizens, it's being broadcast outside of Georgia. So there's the benefit without any of the side effects.
Mark, if I got you correctly, you're pointing and saying that all the necessary steps taken within the regulation, it was not just harmful, even it still drives more and more activities and more investment to Georgia. That's the status.
Yes, and again, you could sit there.
It was not harmful.
You could sit there and you could say, from a certain perspective, the minimum gaming age being raised to 25. Well, that might have been impactful, but in reality, it's not that impactful. And from a negative side, it is much more impactful from the positive side, which is protecting, vulnerable individuals who maybe should not be gambling in the first place. So, the ban on advertising, we talked about this the last time we talked, and quite frankly, that is something that's implemented in a number of European countries as well. It is nothing controversial, nothing new. It's something that a lot of governments do anyway. So again, the positives, in my estimation, by far outweigh any negatives that could have come from these regulations.
Is there anything where, whether, let me say so, industry itself should be more adequate, progressive, or proactive in these regards? Because regulations are not just reversible, they're changeable, they're changing constantly. You're working with, or you used to work at least, with various agencies, including governmental ones, how these should be covered worldwide. You know best practices, and you know that we are not on the top of these regulations, because something might happen in the future again, because world is not world is changing constantly. I mean, the process is going on. Are we? How can we evaluate the level of the industry? Where do we stand now, so far here in Georgia?
So the regulations and even laws are not cast in stone. They change.
Yeah.
Right. And as the marketplace changes, as dynamics change, certain things need to be reevaluated and potentially modified. So regulations are living documents that are modified as necessary, either because of market dynamics or because of certain policies that governments want to put in place. Having said that, the state of Georgian regulation is still, I would call it, in early stages. Georgia wants to have a regulated gaming market. There are laws in place, there are regulations in place, and those now will continue to be modified and adapted to match those best practices that exist in places like Spain, Italy, France, Malta, UK, you name it, the United States. But it takes a little bit of time. You can't go from 0 to 60 miles an hour in the snap of a finger.
Yeah.
So the government here and the regulators are taking that measured approach to make sure that the industry continues to grow, to make sure that the industry is not impacted negatively, and again to put those aspects in place to protect
worldwide trends. While speaking over, a few months ago, distance-wise, we're pointing fairly just pandemic.
Yes.
Now we have another pandemic, and it's rather tragic with its all consequences and things happening within the region, which reacts to Georgia as well.
Absolutely.
But tell me the conflict, the war happening in Ukraine, how industry in general reflects on it. I'm not talking about Georgia. I'm talking about the worldwide trend in these regards.
Well, so I mean, you can't open your phone, you can't turn on the television, you can't fire up the internet without seeing some horrific story about what's going on in Ukraine. It breaks your heart to read the stories of individuals in Mariupol and other places, getting bombed daily and trying to escape with nothing other than the clothes literally on their back. So you can't help as a human being but be affected by that. So gaming in general has been sort of slightly impacted because people are consumed, especially the closer you are to this region. They really are consumed with reading daily what is going on. And we're living in a society now that is very different than, for example, World War II. Everything that happens is immediately made available and is broadcast. So that is having an impact. As you get closer to Georgia, and in Georgia specifically, I've had conversations with numerous operators here that have had, and I say had, operations in Ukraine because now they're gone. And
it's done.
You can imagine
nobody knows the status for today.
Right. And while I don't want to sound callous, if you set aside for a moment the human impact, think about the business impact of investing in opening a casino. And a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, whatever it is, now it's rubble. And all the employees that you had, all that investment, all the anticipated revenues gone. I mean, that's a huge impact, and it just human nature to all of a sudden internalize that and to sort of take a pause from what you normally would be doing. We're all trying to live life like quote unquote nothing's happening, but you really cannot. You cannot.
I hope for the next meeting of ours, we're not going to have some third global hit or something like that, and we'll definitely speak purely about the industry development or, I don't know, facilitation of the regulations itself. How often you are in Georgia?
Typically, I'm here 4 or 5 times a year.
Yeah.
I try to come at least once a quarter. And then I try to stay, 6 to 8 weeks, depending on what's going on. I love Georgia. The people are fantastic. The food and the wine are terrific. And what's really interesting to me is I've gotten to know the gaming operators here and the suppliers that are coming in, some of whom I've known from, my work in the U.S., my work in Japan, and in Europe in general. It's interesting to share stories.
And same,
and it's the same thing.
Page.
And it's great when you're having a conversation with somebody who thinks, oh, these issues that I'm facing are unique to Georgia, and then you say, well, no, we've seen these here and here and there, and here's how we've overcome them, and here's things that work, and here's things that don't work. These are mistakes that we've made, and we have these conversations with the government as well. These are mistakes that were made in other places. Let's not make them here. This is the lesson learned. This is the steps that were taken to get to those best practices. Now we have a shortcut because we don't have to go through this trial and error that other places went through. I think I mentioned to you, I did a lot of work in Japan.
You did.
And the Japanese market now is essentially at a standstill.
Yeah.
It had huge promise, and we still hope that it will come to be. But there's another situation where we try to share best practices, we try to provide advice and say this is how we ought to do things. But there are a lot of dynamics.
Didn't work out.
It didn't work at this point.
At
but
this
again,
point,
we're holding out hope.
Yeah.
So hope springs eternal, as they say. So.
We need your thoughts. We need your mindset in this regard. And so I hope that for any reason, professional or coming back to Georgia again, will have an opportunity to share your thoughts through Forbes and BMG channels. Thank you so much for visiting us.
Absolutely. Thank you for hosting me.
Thank
I really appreciate it.
What makes me so proud of Forbes Georgia, though, is the undeniable fact that this edition is the hope for many large businesses, that their success won't go unnoticed, that their challenges will be aired in a professional manner. But Forbes Georgia is also a big motivation for small and medium businesses, too, that aspire to grow. Here's what we have pulled together as a business week in Georgia.
Colliers suspends to operate on the Russian and Belarusian markets, the company said in a statement. Colliers stands by the Ukrainian people and strongly condemns Russia's invasion of Ukraine. These actions are completely contrary to the principles of democracy and freedom. We support the sanctions imposed by the international community and in response to Russia's large-scale aggression after 28 years of operation, Colliers ceases to operate in Russia and Belarus. We are focused on supporting the affected families and our Ukrainian colleagues who are staying in the country and seeking asylum, the company said in a statement. Sales of Tel Aviv wine cellar in Russia and Ukraine are suspended. 10% of company's exports accounted for Russia, while 30% Ukraine. Zurab Ramazashvili, the founder of the winery, told BMG that Russia-Ukraine war is a global problem for wine exporters. Recovery of Russian market under the embargo is doubtful. As for Ukraine, sales are completely stopped due to the hostilities. Replacing existing market is a difficult process and it can't be done in one day or a week. In general, Russia-Ukraine war is a global problem for wine exporters, as wine will soon be on the list of non-essential products on these markets and consequently companies' sales will decrease, said Zurab Ramazashvili. Tel Aviv wine cellar exported 5 million bottles of wine in 2021. The company sells wines in 32 countries including Poland, Ukraine, China, the Baltic states and Russia. Levan Karalashvili, director of Tbilisi Central, declares that the Russia-Ukraine war has extended the crisis in business. According to Karalashvili, war has significantly changed the situation. Many hoped for tourist recovery, but this process will be complicated. The lack of Ukrainian tourists will hurt the retail sector, as their share in shopping was quite high. We will be able to calculate the exact loss by the end of spring, Karalashvili said. According to him, utility bills are doubled, and as a result, shopping malls have increased service bills to the tenants by 15% since the beginning of 2022. As a result, prices for household appliances increased by 20%. The laurel processing plant Black Sea Laurus has suspended exports to Ukraine due to hostilities. Mikhail Melua, a representative of the company, told BMG that Black Sea Laurus sold 12 tons of laurus in Ukraine this year. According to him, the process of negotiations with China to diversify the market has been underway, but it's suspended due to the tense situation. We started the negotiation process with China, but now it has stopped. It's difficult for us to make preliminary predictions. We plan to process 400 tons of laurel this year, but given the current situation, we don't know how we will be able to find key markets. We will not discuss exports to Russia. Everyone has cut ties, and we are not going to start negotiations with Russia, said Mikhail Melua. ProCredit Bank responds to the recent information on the opening accounts for Russian citizens and Russia-based companies, noting that ProCredit Bank does not open accounts to the companies founded in the Russian Federation or legal entities whose beneficial owners are Russian citizens. The recent events have increased the interest in the approach towards opening accounts for Russian citizens and Russia-based companies. Due to the interest of our clients and the public, we would like to inform that ProCredit Bank does not open accounts to companies founded in the Russian Federation or legal entities whose beneficial owners are Russian citizens. ProCredit Bank does not open accounts for private individuals with only Russian citizenship. ProCredit Bank, German banking group with European values, supports Ukraine, reads the statement. Gsisa enterprise is not going to supply dairy products to Russian market, according to Gocha Ghagashvili, the founder of Gsisa enterprise, responds to the issue of bringing Georgian dairy products to Russian market. According to him, apart from the fact that the company does not want to import products to the occupant country, there is another issue. Georgian raw milk does not meet the demand of local market, and it's impossible to talk about exporting large quantities of products. Gsisa is exported to America. Our products are sold at the duty-free in airports. Over 1 ton of cheese is exported to America per month, Gochagashvili said. Russia's McDonald's should have to receive lettuce produced by the company GDB from May. However, McDonald's left the Russian market due to the recent developments problems were created to Georgian farmers. According to the company's founder, Iva Chhonia, the company was waiting for the harvest in April, which should be sold within a month. Otherwise, the company would have a loss of more than 200,000 euros. He said that works were underway to find alternative markets where lettuce should be exported. Company GDB produces 3 types of lettuce on the land area of 3 hectares in subtropical zone of Lagodekhi. Lettuce price per kilogram ranges within 8-10 gelari. GDB started operating in August 2021, and the company gets harvest twice a year in November and May. Blueberry processing plant Agro will leave the Russian market. As Georgi Guiniashvili, the director of the company, told BMG, it will not be difficult for the company to replace the Russian market. Georgi Guiniashvili notes that demand from Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Oman, and Qatar, has increased. However, blueberry price is a few dollars higher in Russia. The company will not suffer financial losses due to the suspension of exports. AgroLane is operating on the market since 2016. The company processed 150 tons of blueberries last season and sold about 75% of the product abroad. Georgian Microfinance Association and its member organizations expresses solidarity with Ukraine and Ukrainian people. Microfinance organizations have been actively involved in various activities in support of Ukraine. Georgian Microfinance Association provided financial assistance in various directions to help the Ukrainian people. Significant incentives have also been taken. Commissions have been abolished on the money transfers to Ukraine since February 27. Georgian Microfinance Association and its member organizations once again expressed their solidarity with Ukraine and continue to assist the Ukrainian people in various directions. The statement reads:
Talking business here in the checkpoints again, and we will be telling you about Gsisa Cable, which was founded in 1958. From 2006, it has been remanufactured with new types of equipment, modern technological processes, increased product range capacity, and improved quality. Since 2014, the automated system of German production of quality and precision has been activated, leading to several international quality certificates. In 2016, with the help of the program producer in Georgia, the company was remanufactured in full re-equipment. The factory was equipped with a modern type of machinery which allowed them to produce the products under the latest international standards, such as ecologically clean halogen-free cable. So cable shops are represented in all regions of Georgia. Besides cable production, there are various types of electric goods available, including such famous brands as Schneider Electric, General Electric, 3M, Blauberg, etc. The rest is in Gsisa Cable's interview.
You have gained a lot of experience in banking. Now you are a representative of a production company. Does this role feel appropriate? For about 14 years, life outside banking had also been exciting. In your 14-year history, there were international banks too, like Societe Generale, HSBC, and so on. Well, unfortunately, none of these institutions are on the market right now. My career started at HSBC, and I continued in the French group Societe Generale, and then switched to the Bank of Georgia. If I'm not mistaken, it has been 14 months since you joined Gsisa Cable. Yes, it has been 1 year and 2 months since I joined the team. What sort of company did you get to lead? What did you know about the company? What made you decide to completely change your usual work? I knew about the company in general since Gsisa Cable as a brand is widely known. I had been thinking about leaving banking for a long time. I had also been thinking about which field I should have gone to instead. I have preference to the field of production. Production is the most difficult business, and especially our direction, that is the production of cables. All components, raw materials used in the manufacture of our cables are variable. In the case of raw materials, we trade on the London Metal Exchange, we buy copper, aluminium. We also have domestic production of plastics, which is also tied to certain exchange markets. It is a complex business. It is difficult. I wanted to learn something new. That's why I made this decision to join the cable production business. Gsisa Cable from the day of its foundation until today. At what stage of development is the company today? The company was founded in 1958. The company had obviously gone through some difficulties. A lot has been done, but there is a lot to be done. The market has to be mastered. The goal is to grow. We have the ambition and resources, both in the local market and in export markets. We work a lot in this regard. I think we currently have fulfilled 50-60% of our potential. The potential and resources are many and great. How can we redistribute this resource, especially if you are a stock-based company? International partnership. I am also interested in this part of the portfolio. We work in the direction of retail as well as in the direction of B2B. Our clients are large corporate clients. clients, namely installation companies, construction companies. Our products are used in installation activities performed in a large shopping malls, hotels, etc. At what level does the company have relations with international brands? As for international connections, our suppliers are mainly foreigners. We have a fairly large network, a diversified procurement network, well-known brands, large and popular manufacturers of copper and aluminium. Are they mainly European, or there are European countries, the US, Uzbekistan, others? Client portfolio. Is it covered by the Georgian market, or are you already an export-oriented company? The main direction is the local market. I even mentioned that Georgia is quite a growing market and is directly linked to the construction materials market. We have a relationship with all the construction companies, and their growth is our growth. Consequently, there is a great potential for market uptake on the ground. As for the export part, we will tell you about the plans for 2022 later on, but we have historically exported to a neighboring country, Armenia. In 2022, we are planning exhibitions of our products in different countries. The state, within the framework of Enterprise Georgia State Agency, supports the development of the export component for local producers. Therefore, we try to have good cooperation with the state, increasing our exports, developing and finding new markets as a priority. David, before we get into the details of the 2022 plans, I want to ask you how Gsisa Cable overcame the pandemic period. What impact did the pandemic have on your business? In 2020, the operation of our factory was also suspended during a full lockdown. In 2020, there was also a lot of construction stoppage, which in 2021 was slowly reopened and work continued. 2020 was quite a normal year for our company. However, 2021 was already a new awakening for the economy and construction sector. Local market potential. Does it mean that there is a lot of competition? The market, as we mentioned, is growing quite a bit. The share of imports is also large. However, every year the supply of local factories, local production to the market increases, and the share of imports decreases. Well, this is due to the very quality, the responsibilities we have towards our partners. In general, a rather painful topic for us is imports, due to unhealthy, unfair competition. The main problems, as far as I know, are related to quality and its improper control. Yes, that's right. There is a relevant directive that the imported cable product should be controlled. However, unfortunately, this is not well enforced. Each cable contains the most expensive raw materials. For example, the price of copper per ton per day is $10,000. Aluminium, $3,500. 70% of imported goods are out of standard due to imbalances in their composition. We fight this with our own resources. We have a lab. When consumers are interested in whether or not to purchase imported goods, we ensure that they are actually exposed to what dangers they may face. The wire is not a tile or other item. The service life should be very long, 50, 60 years. Therefore, this is our customers with a cable of European quality standard and to fight against substandard imported products. Apart from a few activities that you mentioned, such as development of exhibition spaces with the involvement of Enterprise Georgia, what else is in the company's plans for 2022? The plans for 2022 are pretty big. Companies involved in production need development, growth and modernization. We always strive to be innovators, to introduce new technologies. Technologies are developing in the market and the world in general in such a way that we have to follow this trend. Otherwise, the competition will be very, very difficult. We're thinking of increasing the additional production capacity. This is one of the main plans for 2022. We have a lot of negotiations with the new suppliers on the equipment part, even though the existing equipment works well. We think we can do even more and work even harder. We're thinking of adding new machines and increasing production. This is part of the direct investment, which is directly related to the production, but we also have alternative investment projects that will reduce our costs, including the installation of solar panels. We have a pretty good area around the factory where we can place solar panels, reduce costs, including electricity costs, and become more efficient in the production. My last question is about opportunities. Taking into consideration the pandemic years and the recent sanctions, is it possible to conclude that the demand for your cable products will increase? If sanctions are imposed on countries that are big suppliers of the products we produce in the world and it becomes difficult to export the product from that country, then obviously there will be an increase in demand for our product. However, even without the sanctions, we would not complain of growth. We have about 40% growth in all directions.
The business we will be reporting about now has started out as Natural Plus, a modest family business with a very small amount of investment. Today, the company has changed its name to Georgian Milk Company. However, not only the name has changed, its production has reached 30 to 40 tons per day and aims at building its own milk production by the end of this year. Here's what's made and produced in Georgia.
I'm Georgi Liparteliani, co-founder and general director of a Georgian company called Georgian Dairy Products. This business was started by my mother in 2006. At first, it was a small enterprise in one small room. Then there was a reinvestment. The partners of the company changed several times. Finally, I became a major shareholder for the last 5 years. At the initial stage, the investment was very small. The next stage was the investment of $1,200,000, which involved the import of equipment from Israel, Turkey, and other countries. The founders have invested $500,000 with our own funds in the last 3 years. Initially, the company operated in the market under the same brand, Natural Plus, then rebranded and positioned in the direction of animal fat under the brand Gsisa. We also have the brand Svanuri, which is in a relatively low-cost segment and produces mostly sour cream of 15% and 20%. We also have cheese products. About 5 years ago, the company wanted to produce bio-dairy products. We had a subcontractor farmer with whom we did this project. At the first stage, it required a huge investment, both in the terms of marketing and other directions. Unfortunately, the company lost more than $1 million Georgian lari. Our idealistic vision didn't work out. 90% of those who operate in this industry, including us, depend on imported raw materials from Belarus and various European countries. The other 10% is natural milk, supplied by local milk collection points and farmers. In the last 3 years, the company's productivity and sales have increased 4 times. We produce about 30-40 tons per day. The monthly turnover is from 2.5 to 3 million, depending on the season. This year, we expect to have 36 million annual turnover. Generally, we're positioned at a low price segment. We have a difference of 5 to 10% compared to our competitors. We are building a 500 square meter cheese factory. This will be an aged Georgian cheese factory in which we plan to invest $500,000. The investment includes financial contributions from the funds as well as our own financial resources.
And to close our program for today, we will be turning now to what's definitely made abroad. That's a chip industry, which has first severely been affected by the pandemic, halting logistics, and then to punish Russia very justly so for the war in Ukraine, the restrictions have been imposed on shipping chips to this hostile country. As we will follow in an interview just a moment away, sanctions are working in this direction as well. But before that, let me show you the top 10 semiconductor buyers in 2021. Worldwide semiconductor revenue increased 25.1% in 2021 to $583.5 billion, crossing the $500 billion threshold for the first time, according to Gartner. What you see on the infographic on your screens right now reads that Samsung Electronics regained the top spot from Intel for the first time since 2018, with revenue increasing 31.6% in 2021. Its memory revenue grew 34.2% in 2021, in line with the growth rate of the overall memory market. Apple, Samsung, Lenovo, BBK Electronics, Dell, Xiaomi, Huawei, HP, Hon High Precision, and HPE are the top 10 semiconductor buyers in 2021. Europe has its own game going. On February 8, the Commission proposed a comprehensive set of measures to ensure the EU's security of supply, resilience and technological leadership in semiconductor technologies and applications. The European Chips Act will bolster Europe's competitiveness, resilience, and help achieve both the digital and green transition. According to the EC, recent global semiconductor shortages forced factory closures in a wide range of sectors, from cars to healthcare devices. In the car sector, for example, production in some member states decreased by 1/3 in 2021. This made more evident the extreme global dependency of the semiconductor value chain on a very limited number of actors in a complex geopolitical context. But it also illustrated the importance of semiconductors for the entire European industry and society. Here's the recent statement from Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission.
In total, more than 43 billion euros of public investment, both European Union and national level investment, will support the CHIPS Act until 2030. It will make Europe a more attractive place for tech companies to invest in cutting-edge chips development and production. And this is why I see today's announcement by Intel as a first major achievement under the EU CHIPS Act. An 80 billion euros investment over the next decade across the entire semiconductor value chain, from R&D to manufacturing and advanced packaging, with many strong local partners. It is a considerable contribution to the European chips ecosystem that we are building right now.
Anzor Mekrishvili will tell us more on the industry, sanctions, and overall cybersecurity challenges that today's complicated and devastating reality offers the world. I sat with the head of Cyber and Information Security Department at BDO Georgia for an eye-to-eye interview at Forbes Studio. Anzor, thank you for being with us and taking our questions. Today I want us to speak about the chip industry, which has become quite central to this war, to sanctions, to everything. What kind of industry are we talking about?
Thank you for the invite. Nowadays, chips are the most important parts almost in all techniques we use in everyday life. For example, chips are very important parts in smartphones, laptops, supercomputers, even refrigerators or TVs, in cars, of course, And nowadays we see that there is some shortage of chips on global market, and we see that there are some delays regarding producing some techniques on global market.
Which has started, by the way, during the pandemic. Pandemic also had a very big impact on the shortages that we are talking about, right?
There are some reasons regarding this shortage. One of the reasons was pandemic situation when millions of people stayed at home, and the demand on techniques increased, such as on smartphones, laptops, on some gaming consoles such as PlayStation, etc. That's why this shortage became. This was the one of the reasons of shortage. The second reason of shortage was some sanctions from United States of America to Chinese companies, which was the main provider of chips to American market.
Now we see that Russia is also ostracized from that, right? Can we say that, by the way? Because we know, for example, Taiwan said no to Russia, but we do not know what China has to decide yet.
Yeah, on the global market, the huge provider of chips is Taiwanese company, who is providing chips to the most valuable companies such as Apple, Microsoft, Intel, AMD, and etc. And they rejected to give to Russian companies the chips, which is mandatory parts of some important techniques, which is used in daily life, in military, in other important industries. But we couldn't say that Chinese companies rejected, because we see that there are some restrictions for Chinese companies on American market, and their second huge market maybe is Russian. That's why they can't reject this.
Yeah, what impact can this have on Russians in their daily lives, or you also mentioned military?
During this war against Ukraine, we see that Russian companies, Russian manufacturers can't provide some materials. They don't have enough materials for military equipment. They don't have enough materials for simple home subjects, which is used for citizens of Russia. It's very important for them. It's very important for each country to have useful things for their citizens. And of course, Russian market is very huge, and it's important to have such materials to produce important things.
So we can say that in this direction also international sanctions are working, or
yes,
US sanctions.
Of course we can say.
What are some of the risks that are associated with this war, apart from what we see in regards of lives, in regards of IDPs flowing to Europe? But there are also risks on the cybersecurity side as well, right? Why do we not specify these risks also and understand these risks in our daily lives?
Cybersecurity is one of the most important parts in daily life in 21st century, because every day the technology is improving. We need improved services, we need improved technologies, we need access on any data from anywhere, and this is related with some risks, related with some cyber security risks. For every people, personal data is very important. Their banking information is very important, and it's important for each country, for each organization to secure this data. We need more aware awareness in society. We need more awareness in private organizations, even in government organizations.
What is your take on Anonymous?
In general, the activities which is provided by Anonymous is illegal. But nowadays we see that Anonymous...
But it's a war. Let's say it's a war. We have different rules of game, probably.
Yeah, that's
right?
why for us, Anonymous is standing on the correct side. That's why there is some positive feelings against them. But if we will be under their attack, for example, our feelings will be changed.
Yeah. Of course. We often say that, for example, economically, this war can have some kind of like spillover effects on Georgia, on the region. Can we say that in your sphere as well?
Yeah. We see that there are many people who are working in IT, in cybersecurity. Ukraine was and Russian was and they are one of the most developed and most important players in region regarding IT and cybersecurity. Because, for example, service we can take from these countries, for example, from Ukraine. Human resources are cheaper than European or American services. I mean human resources and man per hour price, for example. We see that there are many people who lost their working places. They are on the market and they are trying to find some work. We also see that from Georgia, for example, many IT developers, IT specialists who had huge experience in this field, they are trying to go out the country because pandemic situation changed the market. Now IT employees and IT developers can work remotely from their home places in another country, in another companies from in companies from other countries, and they are in. I can't say the exact period, but there will be, I think, some deficit of human resources on Georgia market too.
Yeah. Would you?
One of the reasons is these companies are paying in USD dollars.
Yeah, which is important.
It makes them not competitive for Georgian companies.
Yeah, I understand fully. About the Russian market, did you mean Russian IT specialists specifically, or is it bigger than that?
One side is IT specialists, but another side we see that Russian Federation has powerful cybersecurity and cyber attack capabilities. They are dangerous for each country, for every country. And we see that after 2008, after the 5 days duration war with Georgia, there is some hybrid war, because one side is some military activities and the other side there is some cybersecurity activities against the critical infrastructure of each country and the critical industries of the country.
Can we say that that can be part of the also what we call more broadly like informational war? Is that part of that, or is that completely like different field of risks that we have to evaluate?
Information war and spreading some disinformation on society is a weapon for Russian and for every government, because they can manipulate human activities, their minds, based on the information they are spreading in through TV sets or through internet. And we see, for example, Russian citizens that they support their president, they support their army because they don't have alternative information, and they think that information which is going through their governmental TV and social media, it is true.
Yeah, to some extent, of course, and we could argue about that there. So what are some of the tools that we have to withstand this type of like digital or cyber war?
I think the first and most important part is awareness. Awareness for each employee of the company, of each citizen of the country, because the lowest secured part in cybersecurity is a human. First of all, we have to try to aware, to teach them what to do in critical situation, how to separate correct information from false information. Don't trust to any information they can see in internet or in TV. Of course, there is huge investments from government or some private sector in technical parts to secure the data and to set up some business continuity of their business processes. And it's dependent on technologies. They need not little amount of money, and it is very important that first of all government shall work with private sector, and after that the management of companies in the private sector shall think about it.
And work with their employees also
course.
to be aware. Out of 10 points, where would you position Georgia in that skills that you just mentioned?
There are some statistics in worldwide which are provided from some trusted organizations. During the last years, the statistics can show us that Georgia is going back, but my feeling is that we need improvement. I think we are on the 5th position from 10. We need improvement on government side, regulation side, private sector, population.
Very diplomatic answer, very. And do you see that this terrible, devastating, awful war might become a motivation to think more about cybersecurity? Or should it become a motivation to think about it?
The lesson which now we are studying from the war against Ukraine, we have to work how to improve our critical infrastructure, how to secure our critical infrastructure. We have to be ready against the same situation we see in Ukraine. On the one hand, we have to improve our cybersecurity capabilities, and other hand, we have to work with citizens and to be ready against war, for example.
I'm asking this question because we see that, for example, Europe is slowly learning on its mistakes. We heard from Madame der Leyen just a few weeks ago that, for example, they will be bringing the whole chip industry into Europe. By the way, do you think that could balance those risks that we talked about the China's stance in this situation? Do you think that could work for the sanctions and not against
2 years
them?
ago, whole world was dependent on Chinese companies. For example, Huawei was one of the main players on this market. I think after sanctions from United States of America and some sanctions from Europe, the countries are thinking how to diversify market, how to secure and ensure the supply of chain, because they will stop their manufacturing without the chips, for example. And for example, Chinese companies can reject to providing some chips to European or USA companies, and I think the governments of normal countries are thinking about how to secure real manufacturing and not to depend on Chinese or less trusted countries and companies.
Yes, and in general increase the security, right?
Yeah, of course.
In all directions. Thank you so much, and may we meet in better times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's all for today. Keep an eye on Forbes.g and BM.g and stay updated on everything that's important in business and economics here and beyond. We'll meet on Sunday. Have a peaceful week ahead and support Ukraine. Today, they are the ones fighting for everyone's peace.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.